Now let's talk about Dragon Age 2. It's going to be a lot different. So, Dragon Age 2, the story, mid. Super mid. I would say maybe a 7. A 6 or a 7. It feels very removed from the universe that you were just in Dragon Age 1. And not to mention, it's really small. It's a really small area. The entirety of Dragon Age 1 or Dragon Age 2, 5 out of 10. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely. In some ways, absolutely, bro. And the story, I would say the story is not the worst of Dragon Age 2, but it is definitely one of the more disappointing things. So with the Dragon Age 2 story, the dialogue choices kind of stay the same. There's a lot less interesting characters in Dragon Age 2. You're going to run across a lot of people you just don't give a fuck about, including main characters, people who follow you, companions. I'm not going to spoil any of that, though. I would say it's kind of hard to give a fuck about a lot of what happens in Dragon Age 2 because it's so far removed. You're in Ferelden in the first game. Ferelden is a country full of different places, like Denerim, like the Mage's Circle, like Orzammar. And you get to see all these different factions, races of people in their own cultures. You get to learn about them. You get to figure out what their problems are, and they're all separate from each other. In Dragon Age 2, they just kind of mush everything together into this one city called Kirkwall. And you basically spend the game exploring the same 10, 15 areas over and over again. Which brings me to combat. I would say with Dragon Age 2, I like and hate the combat. Let me finish this. Okay. So, Dragon Age 2 combat. Dragon Age 2 combat is a lot more satisfying than the first game, just how it looks. It doesn't feel so much turn-based, which is good and bad, and I'll get into why. It's very, very fast-paced, and a lot of the abilities have way cooler animations than they did in the first one. With that being said, oh boy, I'm about to cook Dragon Age 2 a little bit. Okay? Dragon Age 2 combat, I'm gonna have to play Inquisition on Nightmare and Veilguard to fully commit to what I'm saying here. But as of right now, Dragon Age 2 combat is the absolute worst BioWare experience I've ever had. Rogues are overpowered like mages are in the first one, but there's really no lore to back it. Rogues basically have the ability in Dragon Age 2 to backstab you and go invisible and repeat. Sort of like a WoW help me out here. I want to say thief, but that's Guild Wars. Rogue. My girl just said it. She's playing WoW. So like a rogue in WoW in PvP, how they can like go stealth and then stab you and then go bop 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 and then go back into stealth while you're stunned and almost dead. That is a rogue in Dragon Age 2. However, it's not balanced and it's not a player, it's an NPC. With that being said, that's not even the worst of it. The way Dragon Age 2 does combat. In Dragon Age 1, you opened a door. And behind that door was a group of enemies. You immediately registered what you were fighting, and you positioned your units accordingly. You can go into any of my YouTube videos, and you can see me do this in the later stages. You put your tank in the front of the door, you put your ranged in the back of the door, and then your melee fighter, whether it's your dog or somebody else, waits until your tank engages, and then slams into them and kind of like flanks, right? Super successful. The hold ability in Dragon Age 1 allows you to leave your characters anywhere on the map and they'll just stay there, and then you can go out. In Dragon Age 2, there's about 10 feet before your allies just start following you anyway. So what does that mean? But what that means is when you get into an encounter where you're clearly outnumbered, you can't position your teammates effectively. So the tactics system in Dragon Age 2 is trash. It doesn't exist. It's not a thing. This is a 3-button game, and it's really disappointing. Now, the second thing I'll say about Dragon Age combat, in Dragon Age 1, like I said, you open a door, you register your enemies, you tactically prepare. In Dragon Age 2, you open a door, you see your enemies, you tactically prepare, you engage them, and then more enemies spawn all around you. It doesn't matter if they're behind you. It doesn't matter if they spawn on your tank. They just do, in waves. That's how Dragon Age 2 does it. They spawn enemies in waves, and it is the most exhausting bullshit ever, Doug. It is so bullshit. It's such a lazy way to build, and this is not Halo Firefight. This is not Gears of War Horde. This is a very dumb way to do this. Now, I did say when I was playing it that maybe the reason that that's the case is they wanted the fights to be bigger than Dragon Age 1, but since Dragon Age 2 was a game that came out on console originally, they just didn't have that in it. You know what I mean? It was limited to what it was limited to. And if that's the case, then let me stop there and just say that it sucks. I'm not going to take it out on BioWare if that was just the limit to their technology at the time. But, you know, I mean, you play Mass Effect 1 and 2 and you can see that they obviously could spawn more enemies on the map. So it's just it's weird, right? So Dragon Age combat, I would say 6.5. Not that great. Not that great. Flashy, but not that satisfying. And then with the DLC for Dragon Age 2, it was almost like Mass Effect 2. It was a couple DLC that really didn't matter. You've got a mission where you go to rob some guy's mansion or some shit like that, which it's based around like hunting dragons, so it kind of sounds cool, and it turns out that that's not what you're doing at all. Like that's like the first 5 minutes of the DLC, and then it's like this weird robbery with this elf that, you know what I mean? But I'm not going to spoil it too much. And then the second DLC was the, what the fuck was it? It was the Grey Warden Deep Roads DLC. That DLC is fucking great. I love that DLC. I wouldn't say it's super good overall. Like, it has all the problems Dragon Age 2 has that I just mentioned. But the setting is cool. You're doing something not in Kirkwall, which is fucking nice for a change. And it has a boss that is so satisfying to fight. Such a good boss. Like I said, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but if you want a good fight in Dragon Age 2, go do the Deep Roads DLC. That's what I will say. Now, I would say with that being said, Dragon Age 2, overall, I gotta take my nostalgia and move it to the side real quick. And I would say when I do that, when I don't think about how much I just love these games, I would say Dragon Age 2 overall is probably what Piv put in the chat. It's a 5 out of 10. Like overall, you know what I mean? The combat is probably the best looking feature of it. Everything else is kind of dry. And on Nightmare, oh my god, it's fucking frustrating, dude. Like you are going to hate Dragon Age if you play Dragon Age 2 on Nightmare. So, you know, take that as you will. Obviously, everybody feels how they do about games. I'm playing these games on the hardest difficulty, so I'm only rating them based off of that. Now, the story obviously is separate from the difficulty. You get it regardless, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. So, you know, Dragon Age 1 and 2 on easy or normal, I mean, they're both easily like 7 and up. You know, Dragon Age 1 is definitely a 10 out of 10, probably on normal, right? And then Dragon Age 2, half of what I said, you're not even going to notice. So, yeah, I can understand that. But just from a purely Nightmare difficulty standpoint,